cousins, because my grandmother's pretty much an American, but of German descent, that the best that she could find out is it was a bad time and place to be a German, and everything and everybody had been erased from the face of the earth. And other things happened. Huge numbers of German soldiers were taken prisoner of war at the end of the war and starved to death. Also, German civilians were put in prison camps and treated abysmally and tortured, and there are accounts of this that you're not going to see from a Hollywood production from Steven Spielberg. And so there was a lot of need to justify these atrocities committed by the Allies, you know, the United States, Britain, and the Soviets, and the sinking of the Wilhelm Gustloff is by far the greatest maritime disaster in human history, but you've probably never heard of it. It was the sinking of a German ocean liner that was filled beyond capacity with refugees fleeing the onslaught of the Red Army. And the Russians the Soviets attacked the ship, which was a civilian ocean liner filled, I think, 10,000 civilians were murdered by the Soviets who torpedoed the ship. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm getting off track. So then we have the false testimony at the victors' show trials. Nuremberg, and I can't remember all the other IMTs, the International Military Tribunals, but there were a number of them. And some of the stuff, if you actually read the history of it, it's absurd. They had at one time a auditorium where people who had been prisoners in the camps were just set in the seats of the theater or auditorium or whatever, something like that, and they would parade the accused on a stage, and people would say this person did this and this person did that, and he, you know, he's guilty of this and guilty of that, and it was all sticking. And then one of the Americans actually said, okay, this is a little bit suspicious, so let me try something. And he put on a Nazi uniform and walked out there on the stage, and they were saying the same things about him. So the testimony was just false. And if you tried to testify against what the tribunal was already determining would be the outcome of the trial, you were imprisoned. You became guilty for simply telling the truth as you knew it. And some people were motivated by revenge and partisan hostility that preceded the war. The testimony was not critically evaluated. It was accepted. A number of people who could have testified against the predetermined outcome were killed, silenced, imprisoned, prevented from testifying. So the outcome of the international military tribunals, the victors' show trials, was the foundation of the narrative of the so-called Holocaust. And it's just unreliable. One example, there was a German bank vice president or somebody, a banking executive, was basically given the script to read, what he was supposed to say, and he refused to do it. And so the next day, he's in prison among the accused, simply for refusing to give false testimony. And then the prosecutors, the Allied prosecutors, fabricated evidence. There's clear evidence of this fabrication. I'm not going to go into it, but I know where to find that evidence. You can find it if you look. Then, subsequent to that, anybody who had experience, had observed what happened, who didn't support the official narrative, was silenced. All of the SS people who had inside knowledge of what happened with the SS were hunted down and killed or imprisoned, and never able to tell their story. I think most of the SS were actually killed. And if you were a concentration camp guard, boom, what's the guy's name? I can't pronounce it right. Polish guy that ended up, he got convicted of being Ivan the Terrible, Dynamiak. I can't pronounce it, but and then somebody came forward and said, no, I don't think he is. I think he's telling the truth. So he got acquitted for that. But then he got convicted for something else. He just had to be guilty of something, and that's what any of the prison guards, if they came forward and said, no, what happened there is not what we're being told. Well, they were guilty, and hang them. Laws were established making it illegal to contest the Orthodox history. And this is indisputable. There are laws right now in Germany. Right now, if I were standing in Germany, the Polizei could come to my door, arrest me for what I am doing right now, and put me in prison for years. Okay? You cannot challenge or question the Orthodox narrative of the Holocaust in Germany and in several other European nations. I personally carried an M16 in Germany, thinking that I was defending the German people, the West German people, against a regime that wanted to deny them their freedom of speech and their freedom of the press. And I was willing to give my life for that. Whew, man. And we have an ongoing artful propaganda campaign. In 1978, the word Holocaust did not mean what happened to the Jews under the Nazi regime. The whole concept of it being called the Holocaust was introduced apparently when I was in Germany or someplace in 78, I guess. I was 78, 79, yeah, I would have been in basic training, AIT, and so on and so forth. I wasn't exposed to it. But there was a mini-series about this that came out. And the people who control the media are the beneficiaries of this black propaganda, this continuing black propaganda campaign. And it's kind of like a cult. If you question it, you're out. If if you're in the media, in the mainstream media, and you raise questions about the, that aren't considered, well, forgive me, kosher, although I'm not trying to blame all Jews for this. Most Jews are just victims of deception like the rest of us are. But these guardians of this big lie will expel you from having an influence over what the rest of us hear and think. And again, it's the power of the big lie. Nobody would believe that this is a lie. How could that be a lie? Who would be so evil as to promulgate such a deception and such a racist disparaging of the German people? Because that's what it is. And you know, you don't even have to be of German descent. All you have to do is look like a German. Look like, you know, what Hitler, who, as I said, was probably had a significant amount of Jewish ancestry, wanted people, you know, he thought we were the great people. All you have to do is look like that stereotype, and you're labeled, you know, you're a suspected Nazi from the beginning, and you want to kill everybody who's not like you. You're you know, born guilty, if you will. And I think I've already said it. Jews and non-Jews alike are victims of this. I can't blame a Jewish person who's been told all their life that these things happened, and that anybody who denies them is evil and wants them to happen again, for being angry with me because they've been taught, they've been, if you will, programmed, brainwashed into responding that way. The same for non-Jews. You know, you've been deceived, so to the extent that I can forgive you your reactions upon hearing something that you have been taught to reject, and you've been given a preconceived notion of how to perceive me, I can forgive you for that. What I can't forgive you for is continuing, upon hearing me, upon hearing what I have to say, continuing along those lines, continuing in that unfair treatment of me and people like me. Give me the respect of believing that I am sincere, that I've thought about these matters a lot, and that you may be wrong. And if you think I'm wrong, give me the respect of presenting substantive evidence and reasoned arguments as to why I am wrong. There's so much more to say, because this is a lot bigger than what I've just discussed. But it's enough for this one video. Thank you for your patience and attention, and peace be with you.